And we start again. Hello again, YouTube. We're doing some more random monster analysis live. We've gone through a few of these now, and if you're not familiar or haven't seen any of the others, I'm taking a random monster from Monster Core and doing a breakdown and analysis of it, just my thoughts and how it stacks up against other creatures. So let's give the wheel a spin. Ankhrave Hive Mother. All right. Gonna go ahead and remove it from the list. Okay. So these nasty buggies, they're basically like acid spitting crickets. At least that's how I've always viewed them. So Ankhrave Hive Mothers are fearsome predators that can easily distinguish from the typical Ankhrav not only by their greater size, but by the presence of a large pair of razor-sharp mantis-like arms. Ew. It is a bug. So Ankhrave Hive Mothers are level 8 creatures. They are uncommon and thus have a slightly higher than normal DC. This DC should be 2 higher than a standard DC for its level, as well as an unspecified lore and specific lore DCs adjusted similarly. They are from page 20 of Monster Core. They're pretty high up in the alphabet. And they're just an animal. They're not a beast or anything like that. They're just an animal. And their size huge. Has a perception of +16 with dark vision, tremor sense, imprecise at 90 feet. So they can feel you coming. Like, they can feel you tromping through their tunnels, tromping on the land above them, what have you, which is really scary because they have a burrow speed as well. So they might not know exactly the spot you're in without having to seek using the tremor sense first, but they can ambush using this. So keep that in mind. That's something I believe also normal Ankhrave have, and although at a smaller distance, if I'm not mistaken. So they have 16 perception again, which at level 8 is very average. So they're sneakable. You can tiptoe around them and maybe not set off their tremor sense, so long as you know to move carefully. They have acrobatics 13, which I find a little surprising that they have acrobatics. I suppose it's mostly to try and move through other creatures, but I don't really see these things balancing on narrow walkways. Perhaps it's to cover uneven ground without treating it as difficult terrain. They have an athletics of 20, which is far more what I would expect. They have a stealth of 11, which isn't great, but it's there. And a survival of 16, so they are good at tracking down prey. Generally speaking, when you're talking about low intelligence creatures, of which they have a -4 intelligence, which is better than most insects. Most insects have -5, I think. Or maybe, no, that's probably Pathfinder 1E brain talking. Insects might have a -4 on average in 2E. So long as they're not mindless. But survival is pretty much only good for tracking on most creatures. But let's check out the rest of these. So athletics is 20, which is miles above the next highest. It's 1 point shy of extreme. It's 1 point higher than high, so it's straddling that line. It's something they're very good at, so they're going to be grabbing a lot. I think they're going to be latching on and grabbing. They'll also be very good at climbing, despite not having a climb speed. 13 is low, which is, and 16 is moderate. So it's actually moderate at tracking, which is pretty good. So they're definitely, even though they're semi-hive setup, they're definitely hunters. An acrobatics of 13 shows that it does have some concern for its maneuverability over its hiding, because its ability to hide is basically terrible. But it is definitely focused on being able to hide, so they probably, like many potential ambush predators, are set up to be able to retreat into a space that disguises them mildly and spring forth. They have a strength of 6, which is unsurprisingly their highest attribute. Dex of 1, con of 4, -4 intelligence, +2 wisdom, and -2 charisma. So these are very non-charismatic creatures, despite their size and obviously sort of gross, imposing nature. They're not going to be great at intimidation, and not that they'd necessarily try. They're low intelligence, they're probably just going to go in for the kill. But if you, as a GM, did want to have them like rah, and do something to frighten, you could probably give them +2 instead, give them a +4 circumstance bonus for their huge, imposing nature and their slavering acid mouths. Now let's look at its defensive abilities. So it has reactive strike, so it gets to whack you for moving away or making manipulates or ranged attacks within its reach, which is a lot. That's a very dangerous thing for a creature to have, especially a melee focused one. We have an AC of 29, and that is, let's see, just shy of extreme, so it's very high, definitely meant to be a boss monster. Because I don't imagine that this is going to be a creature that you're fighting a bunch of at once. So this is definitely meant to be more on the boss side of armor class. Got a fortitude of 18, reflex of 15, and will of 14. Oops, wrong tab. And those are going to line up pretty low. So its highest save is 18 and its lowest is 14. So its lowest is just above low, and its highest is just below high. So it's got a very middling roll for its saves. So those are probably going to be better things to target than its AC. And it has 120 hit points, which is saddled just slightly lower than moderate. It's closer to moderate than it is low. So they do make up for having such a high AC with not having that many hit points. They probably got like soft squishy bits. They're just vicious. Has a standard speed of 25 feet plus a burrow of 20 feet. Now, a thing to keep in mind about burrowing creatures is that they cannot see through the earth. These have tremor sense, which helps mitigate that to some degree. But most creatures that are burrowing do not leave a hole unless they actually take time to clear it out. They cannot see, so any attacks emerging from, like if they're just underground, if they're making an attack, that creature is probably hidden to them at best. If not, like just completely undetected, and they have to emerge to know what they're looking at. Now, these have tremor sense, so they can know that something is present, and have like some vague ideas about it. Like they might know that's a very heavy thing. That's something that's like rolling like a cart, or that's something that's stepping like a giant or a person. And then they can seek to get an idea of where that creature is, making them no more observed than hidden, since it's an imprecise sense. But that will allow them to target them through the ground with a approximately 50% mischance. DC was it 11 flat check, I believe, to attack, but that is still an attack for which both parties, both the Ankhrav and the receiving party have greater cover. At least until the attack is fully made, and then arguably it's probably just cover at that point, because the main portion of the ground will have been broken. But that first attack is going to be at a severe disadvantage, but it is still a surprise attack in effect. They have mandibles plus 20, and that is, let's see, they don't have any weaknesses or resistances, I don't believe. No, they are just a straight HP creature. And at 8 plus 20 is a high to hit, so we are probably expecting high or moderate damage. So 2d8 plus 6 is going to be an average of 15 plus 2d6, which is an average of 7. So we're looking at an average of 22 damage, which lands it in high. So we're looking at high damage. And then it has a ranged acid spit, which is plus 17. And that is slightly lower than moderate, but I believe it's a no, it's actually better trained, it looks like, in its acid spit than it is its mandibles, because there's a 5-point difference between its strength and its dex, but there's only a 3-point difference between its spit and its mandibles. So they're actually quite good at spitting. They're just not very dexterous, or they're just not very dexterous at all. It has a maximum range of 30 feet. There is no range increment on this. If you're past 30 feet, they can't touch you. There's no penalties. For 5d6 acid, so that's going to be, what, 7, 14, plus 3, 17 average damage, which is probably low damage. A lot of times range attacks are low damage, even relatively short range. It is moderate, so the range cap has allowed them to do moderate, as well as having the slightly lower than moderate actual to hit. So it's not insubstantial, but minimum of 5 damage and a maximum of 30. So it could be pretty nasty. And these are one of the few creatures that actually break equipment. So they have armor rending bite. Oh no. Go back. Armor rending bite. 2 actions. Hive Mother makes a mandible strike. If the strike hits, the target's armor takes the damage, and the acid damage bypasses the armor's hardness. This can destroy your armor in a single hit. This is very, very dangerous. Like, generally speaking, like, let's reopen material statistics. So weapons and the like are thin items, and armor are standard items. So let's say you're wearing steel armor, iron or steel armor. It has a hardness of 9, 18 hit points before it's broken, not destroyed, 36 before it's destroyed, but 18 before it's broken, and not only no longer provides you bonuses, but actually hampers you. So that is very available to this. So you're looking at 15 damage there, which is likely going to overcome the hardness. And then another 2d6. So another 7. So you're looking at probably an average of 7 plus 6 damage. And that is not quite 18. Not quite enough on average to break your armor. But if these roll above average, they can definitely take out your armor in one hit. I do not believe that they are likely to destroy your armor in a single hit unless it's a critical. But if you're wearing like leather armor, where it's got a hardness of 4 and 8 hit points to break, or 16 to completely destroy, they can wipe you immediately from your armor. Now, on the upside, if your armor is totally destroyed, it's not hampering you, like it would if it was just broken. But that is nasty. This is really, really nasty, and it's a rare ability. Their next ability is Frenzy Pheromone. And the Hive Mother unleashes a pheromone that causes all other Ankhravs in a 100-foot emanation to become quickened until the start of the Hive Mother's next turn, and they can use the extra action only to burrow, stride, or strike. And it can't do this again for 1d4 rounds. Depending on the combat, this can be incredibly dangerous, because if you're a little bit of a higher level, and maybe like you're on level, maybe you're level 8, this thing can have a bunch of normal Ankravs, and even though they're going to be really low and weak, that's a lot of extra actions for them to interpose themselves and get in the way, for them to burrow and cause cave-ins, for them to get in and land a lucky blow, for them to spit and hope that you fail a save. There is a lot of danger here, and chances are this is probably going to be at least 1 level, 2 levels above you when you fight it, just for the majesty of a boss fight, and it'll have fewer Ankhegs or Ankravs. Sorry, I still use the old name sometimes, and it'll still have some Ankravs around, and some of them might be elite, just to be a little more on par. You know, they're Queen's Guard sort of situation. But that is potentially a lot of actions for just 2. But I think on average, if you're doing like a boss and lieutenants fight, which is 1 boss and 2, I think level -2 creatures, which, so if I'm not mistaken, that's an appropriate fight for level 6. This is trading 2 actions for 2 actions. With elite Ankravs. But outside of that, you're probably dealing with more normal Ankravs and them just swarming you with this. So it's a pretty good trade-off. Now, of course, you could single enemy boss with this. I don't think it suits them well. They do have relatively low HP. But you could do it that way. But I think this is at least 2 adds on style boss monster. And of course, later on, like if you're doing a very Ankhrav centric arc, you could have like these just reflavored as the strong ones, instead of actually being the Hive Mothers, and just get rid of Frenzy Pheromones. And they'd still be a rather potent enemy. And they have Spray Acid, basically a breath attack, 2 actions, Acid. Hive Mother spews acid in a 60-foot cone, dealing 8d6 acid damage and 1d6 persistent acid damage with a DC 26 basic reflex save, and it can't do it again for 1d4 rounds. So a thing to note here is that Ankrav's spitting acid does hurt the other Ankravs. So while the Hive Mother might not care so much about, I can make more of those, the smaller Ankravs that can spray or spit probably aren't going to catch the Hive Mother in their AoEs. So that's just a thing to keep in mind. Overall, I think that the Ankhrave Hive Mother is meant to be a boss fight. It's not meant to be a 1 versus the party boss fight. It's meant to have adds, so this isn't going to be a party level +3 or a party level +4 fight. This is probably going to be a party level +2 or +1 with adds. And that's good. I like when creatures are actually designed to be that way. And with Frenzy Pheromones, it definitely is. But that's going to be my general analysis for the Ankhrave Hive Mother. They are weak HP wise, but pretty hardy AC wise. You really want to attack their saves, and you do not want to get in their face because they will shred you, and they will shred your armor, which is a very rare and dangerous ability. So, like, subscribe, and comment, all that jazz, and thank you for watching. Peace.